There are certain themes that we talk about on these live streams. Obviously, we talk mainly about capitalism, socialism, the struggle for justice. We talk a lot about Christianity and the Bible. We talk about Marxism and imperialism and all of that. But there are certain like current events that we talk a lot about on these streams. For example, I have been telling you all about Kamala Harris for the longest time. September of 2020, my book hit the shelves, Kamala Harris and the Future of America, an essay in 3 parts. Got a lot of very good reviews, and I talked about the woman who became vice president of the United States. And what's interesting is she hadn't even been elected vice president yet. I wrote a book. I started writing it after she got the nomination, after I'd done a huge amount of research, after she was picked as vice president. I wrote a book about her after Biden picked her. That book got picked up, got a lot of reviews that were pretty widely appreciated. The Morning Star daily newspaper in the United Kingdom, some daily print newspapers based in India. They also published reviews of it. Sputnik Radio was broadcasting interviews and selections from my book all over the world. I mean, it was a hit. The book it's fair to say it was a hit. And everything that I said in my book on Kamala Harris has turned out to be true. Now her staff says that she is a narcissist, like I said, sadistic narcissist. I mean, everything that I've written in my book has basically panned out to be even more true than at the time I wrote it, right? And that shows that, to some degree or other, because we study world events from an anti-imperialist perspective, because we pay attention to things like personality theory, we can kind of track and understand why things happen to some degree. I mean, we don't have a magical crystal ball. We can't practice divination. We can't predict the future. We have no mystical magical powers, but we have an understanding of world events, right? And that understanding gives us kind of, look, I was able, through some direct connections, I knew somebody who knew Kamala Harris's father, gave me, inside information, told me, look, one thing led to another, and I was able to start talking about Kamala Harris. And we now know that Tulsi Gabbard is pretty much drawing from my analysis of Kamala Harris. She's raising the alarm about how Kamala Harris is so much more dangerous than Joe Biden. This is a contribution that we made by observing and paying attention to things that other people don't notice. We are able to pick up on things and have acute attention to things that other people that are more focused on the surface level stuff miss. We're not always on top of all the surface level stuff. We don't necessarily keep track here on these streams about, did Donald Trump fart again? Or, what did the latest celebrity do? We're paying intimate attention to very specific topics, things that are very important to us, right? And the psychology and the development of Kamala Harris and who might be grooming her to be the commander in chief, and the Hillary Clinton State Department and how she was selected, and why Tulsi Gabbard used her limited time on the debate stage to go after Kamala Harris. We talk about that on these streams, and we're paying acute attention to things that other people miss. And that is what makes our community and the analysis of the Center for Political Innovation so gosh darn unique and important, right? If we just got on here and talked about the stuff everybody else talked about, it wouldn't be valuable. But we have our ideology, we have our perspective, but we also pay very close attention to very specific topics that other people do not pay attention to. And that is why what I'm about to talk about is very important. Because not only do we observe, we're not just casual observers here. We don't just sit on here and go, oh, by golly, that happened. By Jove, something happened the other day. What do you think about that, Caroline? Did something happen? Why, yes, it did happen, Joe. It happened. Why, goodness gracious, something happened. I think this about what happened. I think this about what happened. We don't do that on these streams. It's not just casual observing. I believe that you, not me, you can have an impact on world events. Not a huge impact necessarily, but with your little contribution, we can nudge the forces of history, we can have an impact. I believe we can do that with our efforts to push the conversation one way, to raise certain issues. I believe that we can have an impact, but it's a matter of looking for openings, looking for little cracks where we can insert ourselves. Look for a place we can throw a pebble and make a ripple. That's what we have to do. We have to be strategic. Something I talked about a lot on these streams is becoming aware of your own strength, not fantasizing that you're Superman, that you're super powerful, but also not falling into the trap of believing that you're powerless. Becoming aware of what your capabilities are, flexing the muscles that you have, and swinging into action to do what it is you're capable of doing to have an impact on the course of world events. And that all of us who take on the responsibility of being global citizens, the responsibility of engaging with and taking up history's challenge, it is our job not just to fantasize that we're revolutionaries. It is actually our job to figure out what contribution we can make. The second verse of the Internationale, everyone knows, well, not everyone knows, but the anthem of international communism, right? Arise, ye prisoners of starvation. Arise, ye wretched of the earth. That's the first verse. Many people do not know the second verse, but the second verse to the American version of the Internationale, which is not commonly sung, right? The American English version, not the British English version, not the Billy Bragg version, but the American English version of the Internationale. The second verse goes like this: We want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall. We workers ask not for their favors. We must consult for all, to make the thieves give up their booty, to free the spirit from the cell. Each must themselves decide their duty. They must decide and do it well. And I have always found that second verse of the English translation, or the American English version of the Internationale, to be important, right? We want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall, right? Which is, we're not looking for some rescuer. We must ourselves, or we want no condescending saviors to rule us from the judgment hall. We workers ask not for their favors. We must consult for all, to make the thieves give up their booty, which, now booty obviously has a different connotation, but back then booty, it was like a pirate. If someone steals something, arg me booty, it's stolen goods is booty. To make the thieves give up their booty. But then the second part, I always really like the next line: to free the spirit from the cell, meaning that we're not trying to cram human beings into a box. We're trying to unleash the human spirit, unleash human creativity, to make the thieves give up their booty, to free the spirit from the cell, to unleash human potential. We must ourselves decide our duty. Meaning, it's up to you. We must ourselves decide our duty. We must decide and do it well, meaning that we have to figure out what contribution we can make. It reminds me of another, a classic Woody Guthrie song. You got to go down and join the union. You got to go down and join the union for yourself. Nobody can join it for you. You got to go down and join the union by yourself, meaning that you have to make a choice, right? And that the struggle of trying to change the course of human history, the struggle of trying to have an impact, whether you see this from a communist perspective, trying to take up history's challenge, push forward the contradiction, advance historically progressive forces, march us toward a higher mode of production and a higher historical plane, whether you see this from a Christian religious perspective, trying to battle against Satan, to advance the forces of good, to achieve God's kingdom on earth, however you're looking at this, right? You ultimately have to determine what kind of impact am I myself capable of having, and what can I do to maximize that impact, and how can I experiment to see what kind of impact I can have. That's basically what the struggle that all of us who take this seriously are doing. We're trying to figure out, how can we change the world? What are we capable of doing? And once we've experimented a little bit, we want to make it a little bit bigger. We did one thing here. We wrote a book about Kamala Harris. We promoted it. We popularized it. So now, now many of you will know that the issue that I have really gone all in on, which many people say it doesn't make sense, Caleb. You're always talking about Russia. You work with a Russian media company. You're always talking about China and how they're the vanguard of American communism. But the issue that you all know I have become obsessed with over the last year, but for much longer than that, but in particular the last year, has been peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. I have been obsessed, just obsessed with the fact that under Donald Trump, Kim and Trump met with each other, and the government in South Korea was getting friendlier to the North, and the government in the North was getting friendlier to the South, and Russia and China were facilitating a situation where North Korea might give up its nuclear weapons, and Donald Trump became the first American president to ever visit North Korea, and then John Bolton ruined it, and everything stopped. And it was a mess. It was a mess. But I've noticed, and I've pointed out to you all, that since leaving office, Donald Trump has continued to emphasize that he wants peace with North Korea. And I've said this is an opening. This is an opening. Those of us who want peace with North Korea, who want to make life better for the people of North Korea, who see Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il and Kim Jong-un as leading a mass movement of their people for national liberation, those of us who see anti-imperialism as the future, those of us who want to support the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and end the Korean War and bring the troops home, this is an opening. The fact that Donald Trump, for whatever reason, and people speculate about why, Donald Trump has made this his issue, right? And we noticed also Tulsi Gabbard has also made this an issue. Tulsi Gabbard, who, former Democrat, quit the Democratic Party, member of Congress, now hanging out with Republicans. Tulsi Gabbard has also been making the Korean Peninsula one of her big issues. And we like Tulsi Gabbard on these streams. And she hosted for Tucker Carlson, and that this is something that if we can intervene, we can continue to highlight how important it was that Donald Trump visited People's Korea. We can highlight this at every opportunity. We can raise awareness about this. It's an opening for us. It's an opening for us. So that is why what I'm about to tell you is so gosh darn important. Because again, you can say, oh, Caleb, what you guys do has no impact whatsoever. This just happened. This is a news item that happened over the weekend. Roll it, Jimmy. There's no Jimmy. It's me. I don't know. This is a thing people say? Roll it, Jimmy. Or, there's no Jimmy. I'm just going to put it on.
President Mike Pence and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley have heavily criticized former President Donald Trump after he celebrated the North Korean government's appointment to the World Health Organization. Pence and Haley, who are both potential candidates for the 2024 GOP presidential nomination, made the comments during interviews with Fox News in Iowa on Saturday. Trump congratulated North Korean leader Kim Jong-Un on his social media platform Truth Social, linking the comments to an article about the North Korean official appointed to the executive board of the WHO. The announcement prompted immediate criticism from neighboring South Korea due to North Korea's history of ignoring WHO policies.
Like, comment and subscribe for more news.
So, over the weekend, North Korea got an official appointed, got its first official appointed to the board of the World Health Organization. Now, that's a big deal for North Korea. right? The World Health Organization is the UN body that is, key in, promoting health around the world. But the significant thing is that Donald Trump gave North Korea and Kim Jong-Un a shout out on Truth Social. He congratulated them. He said, "Great work" on Truth Social. And then what happened next? Mike Pence and Nikki Haley both came out swinging against him, saying, "How dare he do that?" They both criticized Donald Trump for doing it. This is what Mike Pence said.
Organization let America and the world down during the COVID pandemic. I mean, they literally were complicitous in covering up what was happening in China, and we held them to account.
Bullshit.
During our administration. But look, whether it's my former running mate or anyone else, no one should be praising the dictator in North.
No one should ever praise North Korea. No, we praise the head choppers in Saudi Arabia. No, we praise the death squads in Syria that the USA is arming to try and overthrow the government. No, we praise the Nazis in Ukraine, but no one should ever praise the president of North Korea, a country that's been surrounded and locked out of the global economy, but is still launching spacecraft into orbit. I mean, come on. No, you can't do it. But look, this is Donald Trump's tweet. Not his Truth Social, right? Congratulations to Kim Jong-Un. This is great. This is great.
North Korea, or praising the leader of Russia, who has launched an unprovoked war of aggression.
Yeah, totally unprovoked. The USA toppling the Ukrainian government in 2014, that never happened, right? I mean, all the weapons the USA is pouring in, but
the leader of Russia, who has launched an unprovoked war of aggression in Ukraine. This is a time when we ought to make it clear to the world that we stand for freedom, and we stand with those who stand for freedom.
Yeah, well, the people of the Korean Peninsula have lost the freedom of having their country unified, and they've had their country divided, and that's not freedom, and they would like to reunify. But anyway, I'm going to write the super chats down. Thank you for the super chats. Okay. All right, that's one. That is incomprehensible. So I heard that, right? Donald Trump gave a shout out on social media. He praised Kim Jong-un. Awesome. Mike Pence and Nikki Haley both took a dump on Donald Trump for praising Kim Jong-un. Not surprising. They're both neoconservatives. But then it gets even better. This is Donald Trump, a recent appearance he did on a podcast.
North Korea was a big problem. Obama said we're going to go to war with North Korea. Then Kim Jong-un was a big problem. And he wouldn't take Obama's phone calls, wouldn't take any meetings with him, wouldn't do anything. And then I started with him. Then all of a sudden, we met, we got along. We had no problem with North Korea. Now they're acting up again.
What's that first call like, Mr. Trump, with when you try to get a hold of Kim Jong-un? Like, how does that happen?
He actually called me, and we did get along.
Like, that's crazy.
So there you go, folks. There you go. There you go. I mean, it's happening. There you go. I mean, it is happening. I don't know what to say. I mean, you make your own judgment. But what I have been saying, and the theme that the Center for Political Innovation has been raising for the past few months, we've been saying, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We've been emphasizing that. And now Donald Trump appears to be doubling down on the position. Look, I'll just show you. This was us. This was us outside the White House, right? This was us outside of the White House. This was us outside of the White House during our conference, the Summit Against Hypocrisy that we did in March. Just watch. We were outside of the
How
White
did
House.
this stop? This was a great moment. June 30th, 2019. The leader of People's Korea and the leader of the United States shook hands. They met, the first president ever to visit the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. We had Donald Trump trying to make peace with a country that is still technically at war with the United States. Donald Trump was trying to open the door to peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. There would be hope to bring the troops home from South Korea. There would be hope that there could be denuclearization, that North Korea wouldn't feel threatened anymore, that there could be no more bombs and weapons, and the people of Korea could reunify. And Donald Trump going to People's Korea was sabotaged. It was sabotaged by John Bolton and the neocons, the same forces that got us into Ukraine, the same forces that are escalating and pushing buttons against China and Taiwan on the Taiwan Strait, the same forces that want World War III sabotaged the peace process on the Korean Peninsula. We're here to say, finish what Trump started. We want peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We want U.S. leaders and the leaders of People's Korea to sit down. We would like to see trade between the United States and People's Korea. We would like to see those railroads in South Korea that have been built. We'd like to see them in action and see the Korean people trading with each other. We don't want war. We don't want money wasted on international confrontations. And we also don't want a police state. And at the same time that the big bankers who control Joe Biden, the Silicon Valley monopolists and fascists, the same forces that control Joe Biden, are waging a war not just around the world, but against the American people. They are driving our country into poverty. Our trains are derailing. People are breathing in deadly chemicals. The water is not properly purified. Jobs are falling apart. Schools are falling apart. It's a nightmare. They have waged a war against us. And instead of rebuilding America, they're trying to move toward a low-wage police state. That's what they're doing here in the United States. They're trying to move toward a low-wage police state. We saw what happened, what's been revealed about January 6th. That was a setup. We saw that those people were led to do what they did for propaganda purposes. We call for an amnesty. We don't endorse what the people did, but they were enabled to do it and set up to do it by the American government. The FBI, the Secret Service, other agencies enabled what happened on January 6th to happen. Those folks were entrapped. And we say that until they're going to be honest with the public about what really happened on January 6th, there needs to be an amnesty for those who've been arrested. And the same goes for the Uhuru movement. A group of black revolutionaries, black activists, had guns pointed in their faces, drones flown into their homes. They were terrorized and accused of being Russian agents. Why? Because they were organizing for the rights of black people, organizing for the rights in their community, providing services that were not available in their community. They're waging a war against us. At the same time, they're waging a war against China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba, and any country that dares break out of their financial system. And it is our responsibility to oppose it and to join arm in arm with the people of the world against imperialism.
So, as you all know, that was in front of the White House. There, that banner was unfurled, and we were out there with our bullhorns out in front of the White House. Saying finish what Trump started. But then that's not the only place that our banner has been unfurled. Certainly not the only place. Here's a quick clip of what happened just a week ago. Just a week ago. We were in New York City. This is on 42nd Street.
Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with...
See that banner? That's the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula button. Banner. It's right there.
With Russia. Peace with China. Peace with Russia. Peace with China. Peace with...
We were in front of the United Nations with our banner. We marched from Union Square all the way up to the United Nations with our banner that said, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And that banner was at the United Nations. I'm telling you, folks, I think that we are having an impact. because what we've been saying, which is that Donald Trump, one of the things that defines him as a candidate is that he wants to negotiate with Kim Jong-Un. I think it's being confirmed, and we would love that, John, but we'll talk about that. I think that we can recognize that that this is having some impact. That the fact that this is one of the defining aspects of Donald Trump that's getting around. Donald Trump made a point of congratulating North Korea on Truth Social. Nikki Haley and Mike Pence attacked him for doing so. And now Donald Trump has doubled down on a podcast and talked about how awesome it is and how much he wants to continue negotiating with North Korea. I'm telling you, folks, we saw a crack. We saw a crack, and now we're going for it. We're going for it. We need to get this banner up in many different places, right? Think about where you could go with this banner. We could ship this banner to you, right? If you're in the CPI, right? We could get you, it's not an expensive banner. We ought to get that banner, that finish what Trump started banner. We ought to have that unfurled everywhere we possibly can, right? We should get a billboard with that banner made. Imagine that. If in the middle of the highway, people were driving down the highway, all of a sudden they saw a picture of Donald Trump and Kim Jong-Un shaking hands, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. That would be badass. Would that not be the best billboard to put on the highway? We could put it on a highway near a military base. We could put it on a highway near a Korean American community. We could put it on a highway, all kinds of different places. Wouldn't that be beautiful if we did that? We should get this, finish what Trump started, peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula banner. We should get that everywhere. We should get that everywhere because this is a crack. This is an opening. We want to finish what Trump started. That is something that we, as the Center for Political Innovation, that's something we want to do. We want to finish what Trump started. We want peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. We say that our enemy is not in Pyongyang and that Kim Jong-un should be a friend of the American working people, right? And we have made this banner and we have started this campaign and it's starting to look like it's catching on. I mean, the fact that we were just out in March in front of the White House, and now last weekend we were out at the UN with this banner, and it's happening, folks. It is happening, right? There's Bismuth Hertz and Timoshenko, and it's happening, right? We're seeing Donald Trump double down on, yes, I am the negotiate with People's Korea candidate. We were right. We were absolutely right. And this is exciting. This is something we can do, right? This is something that we can do. This is something that we can do, and we ought to do it, right? We ought to do it, and it's having an impact. And I'm exhilarated. I am just exhilarated to see that we're having an impact, that we are making a contribution, right? This is the kind of thing. We are changing the conversation around the Korean Peninsula. We are doing that. We've got Mike Pence and the neocons on the defensive. We are changing the conversation. So let's take this further. Let's figure out a place you could unfurl this banner in your neighborhood, your community. Let's figure it out, right? This is something that we can do.